Well, a new witness is expected to take the stand today in the Senzo Meyiwa trial at the High Court in Pretoria. The state concluded its re-examination of the third witness, Tumelo Madlala, on Friday. Madlala was among the people in the house when the goalkeeper was shot and killed in 2014 during an alleged robbery at the home of his then-girlfriend, Khumalo, in Vosloorus. Let's now cross over to Chriselda Lewis for more on the story. So, Chriselda, good morning to you. New week, obviously. New witness on the stand. Talk to us. What do we know about today?
Well, Leanne, indeed, we're expecting a new witness to take the stand this morning, as you indicate, here in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial in the High Court in Pretoria. We're very skeptical, Leanne, on whether to mention if this is the person who will take the stand. You'd know there have been very serious concerns about the safety of witnesses that will take the stand in this matter. A number of the legal representatives in this particular case have raised concern about their safety and the safety of witnesses. But what we assume at this particular point, without mentioning any names, is that the next person who will take the stand is likely to be someone that was also inside the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was shot and killed. And I say this on the basis that the trajectory with which the state has moved in this particular case, it seems like we're dealing currently with those that were inside the house, those that are being called at this particular stage as witnesses seem to be those that were inside the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed. So we're expecting the state to move towards that direction here this morning once again. But what we did hear last week when we saw that the testimony of Tumelo Madlala, Senzo Meyiwa's best friend, was about to conclude, we had already heard that the next witness who was scheduled to take the stand after Madlala was already in the Gauteng area and was on standby. In fact, the lawyer for one of those individuals, we understand, had told us so, that his client had been on standby to take the stand next. The lawyer had been in court last week to ask the state or this court whether they could be present inside court on a watching brief on behalf of their client. You would recall this was a request that had previously been made by Magdalene Munsami, who is the lawyer of Senzo Meyiwa's then-girlfriend, Khumalo. That was rejected by this court in that the state and the defense believe that the presence of lawyers who are representing clients who could possibly still take the stand in this particular matter, their presence here would jeopardize the purity of this particular trial. So what we saw last week was that the lawyer representing the possible next witness in this matter then had not sat at the side where the legal counsel had been sitting, but in fact sat in the gallery. A bit of a contentious issue there, Leanne, on the basis that we kind of asked ourselves the question, what was the point then if you had the legal counsel being able to sit in the gallery and not on the side where the legal counsel would be sitting, because they'd still sit and listen to the proceedings themselves. And these proceedings, of course, are also being streamed and are live on television on a number of networks. So I guess that would be something that legal experts could opine on. But indeed, we're expecting one of the individuals that was inside the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed expected on the stand. But in a wrap-up of the cross-examination, Leanne, last week, contradictions the defense are bringing up in the testimony of Tumelo Madlala, in which Madlala, you'd recall, had told this court that he believed that the person that had shot Senzo Meyiwa had been behind him. And in fact, the defense, Advocate Zandile Mshololo, representing accused number 5, had basically told the court that the doctor's report or the post-mortem report gave all indications that the person that shot Senzo Meyiwa had been standing in front of him, and that the entrance of the wound had been right towards the spot in the front of his chest. So, he was asked a lot about whether he had actually seen the intruder inside the house, with the gun. This was the first intruder inside the house with the gun. And he had told this court that he'd caught a glimpse of the intruder and sort of looked away and looked up again, obviously because he says he had been afraid of what might or could have transpired at the time. His character also really coming under question. Remember, we'd been introduced to Tumelo Madlala as, a best friend of Senzo Meyiwa. Meyiwa, according to his version, had called him to come and visit him just a day before the incident itself had taken place. And, questions about him selling photographs, personal photographs that he had of Meyiwa to Netflix for the documentary, which you would recall was aired just days before this trial had begun. Questions about how he never shared the money with any of the Meyiwa family members, or not even Senzo Meyiwa's wife or the little child that they had. So questions about whether he even loved his friend. Suggestions made by the defense that Madlala was even jealous of Senzo Meyiwa. Of course, he denies all of this, and we saw him when he left the stand. Recall, we were not allowed to take any pictures of Madlala, despite the fact that he had appeared in this Netflix documentary, the court ruling that the safety of witnesses is paramount in this particular instance. But what we saw when he left the court was that he was extremely emotional. When Tumelo Madlala left the court, he was crying in the court corridor, and he kind of had a look of a sense of relief. And I think he still does believe that the version that he is giving is the truth of what had taken place inside that house. He maintains that there were intruders that had entered the house on that day. We've also heard some statements from Senzo Meyiwa's brother-in-law, in which he had claimed that Madlala had told him that there'd been a fracas inside, or fracas inside the house. Before Senzo Meyiwa was shot, there'd been an argument between Khumalo, who is Kelly Khumalo's sister, and her boyfriend. And this was the version given by Senzo Meyiwa's brother-in-law, who then says that, this is what Tumelo Madlala had told him. Also hearing from a lawyer, or I beg your pardon, a neighbor of Kelly Khumalo's mother in Vosloorus, which was the scene of this incident that had taken place back in 2014. The neighbor, in a statement which was last week read in court, indicates, or he says, he heard loud noises coming from Kelly Khumalo's mother's house, and he thought that it was a party. And when he had peeped through the window to see what was going on, he had seen someone wearing a white T-shirt. Now, you'd recall, Madlala had previously told this court that Meyiwa was wearing a white T-shirt on that day. He was wearing jeans as well as white tackies. So it seems that the neighbor would have seen Senzo Meyiwa, towards the window in the kitchen, and this is when the neighbor indicated that he had then heard a gunshot going off. So Madlala maintains there were intruders. The defense says this was not the case, and if indeed the next witness, as we expect this morning, to be someone who was inside the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed, we're expecting the defense to continue on that trajectory, that there was no intruders inside the house, while those who were inside the house maintain that there were people who came inside the house, demanded cell phones and money, and that in fact they had been accosted inside the house by these intruders.